make that cheaper. They get a really good player back in Dennis Schroeder for him. So where can they find the discounts? And there are guys that are going to be clamoring to get to LA. So maybe it's a win. I'm not sure that he's the level player Danny Green is. So they might take a bit of a hit there. But then I'm thinking about Milwaukee, and really that takes an option off the board for them. So while he opted out, they have a chance to re-sign him back for, just a little bit more. I mean, he's looking to see what market he has. So that's a player that knows the system, that has a chance to take them to at least the level they were last year, and hopefully with the right pieces a little bit further. So great pickup for the Lakers and tough for the Milwaukee. I mean, you damage your opponent. That's really what this is about.
And Brandon, I have to ask you a quick question about this signing for Wesley Matthews and him going to the Lakers. What does that say to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Does he still want to come back to the Lakers? Does he try and pursue other options across the league to try and get more money?
Well, I think one might not necessarily cancel out the other. I mean, both things can be true. I think KCP is going to look at what might be the most lucrative deal for him, but also what makes the most sense. So you may get a better offer financially from another team. But here's a chance to play at a high level and really maintain value. As long as he doesn't lock himself up for too long, he could be back in the market and make money when the team starts to decline or when there's a change with LeBron. So I would think that he's still available to them. The Lakers are going to still have room, and they're going to have their mid-level exception. I don't know that KCP is in a market any bit above the mid-level. So the Lakers still have probably they're in the catbird seat in terms of negotiating with him.
Yeah, getting word from Shams that this is a one-year, $3.6 million deal for Wesley Matthews. But let's take a look at this.
The depth and what they do outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They got some answers. They added Dennis Schroeder and now Wesley Matthews and Montrezl Harrell. What's going on with L.A.?
Yeah, they certainly had to address that center position once Dwight Howard headed to Philadelphia to play for Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey. And Montrezl Harrell comes from the Clippers, where he was, a very productive player. But they get him at essentially the mid-level exception, at 2 years, $19.5 million with a player option on year 2. And the priority for the Clippers was keeping Marcus Morris, and they're going to do that with a 4-year, $64 million deal, I'm told.
So Anthony Davis, no need to worry in L.A.?
Yeah, Anthony Davis will be back with the Lakers. He's going to take some time to decide, I'm told, at least through Thanksgiving next week, about how he wants to structure his deal with L.A. And, he certainly has several options in terms of the length. One option for him will be to get his contract lengthwise on par with LeBron James. That would be essentially a 3-year deal with a player option after the second year, and then he and LeBron would be contractually aligned. They obviously share the same agent, Rich Paul.
All right, so meanwhile in Boston, Gordon Hayward opted out of his contract with the Celtics, but
Sixers and the Knicks, and Stephen A. Smith joining us now. We'll get to the Knicks in a moment, but Philly last offseason, they were very busy with deals at the start of free agency. They gave big contracts to Al Horford, Tobias Harris, max deal to Ben Simmons. Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers now leading this team. Horford is gone in that big contract. Do you expect more to be active in free agency here?
Well, first of all, that's his MO. So, of course, I expect him to be active. Secondly, and more importantly, think about what he's doing here. You add Danny Green, you add Terrence Ferguson, you definitely add Seth Curry, who's a Curry. That means he can shoot, okay? So you're trying to surround your big man, Joel Embiid, with shooters, particularly in the event that you end up losing Ben Simmons because you're going after James Harden yourself. I don't know whether that'll happen or not, but I know if I'm the Philadelphia 76ers, I certainly do not want to let James Harden go to Brooklyn. Remember, Daryl Morey was mired in the Western Conference for years, teasing about the potential championship squad that he had, but he kept running into a trifecta that he simply couldn't match up against in the Golden State Warriors with the greatest shooting backcourt in the history of basketball in Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, along with Kevin Durant. Now Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn. He's got Kyrie, and he could potentially get Harden. If you're Daryl Morey, you want to make sure you get Harden to pair him with Embiid. You might want to hold on to Ben Simmons, but I doubt Tillman Fertitta and the Rockets will let you. You'll have to give up multiple pieces, picks, and things of that nature. But again, this is Daryl Morey that we're talking about. The man doesn't stand still. He certainly isn't averse to making moves. moves. That has been his history. I don't know if there's anybody in the league that has made more moves than him in the last 12 to 13 years. I think he's like top 2 in the league in the number of moves. So I think he'll try something. Whether he'll be able to pull it off remains to be seen. But clearly, with what they're doing, they want to surround Joel Embiid with shooters. And I think you know this better than most, Kevin. We love Ben Simmons. He's a star and a stud, but a shooter, he is not.
So surround him with guys that can space the floor and shoot. And meanwhile, let's talk about your Knicks. They shed some deals earlier this week. It's been a very good week in New York. Obi Toppin now coming in. Now the Knicks have $35 million in space. What do you expect to see from Leon Rose?
Well, I think they're going to go after one or two people. They're certainly going to go after Gordon Hayward. They think he fills all the boxes and he's an ideal fit for them. I'm not sure that's true, particularly since they drafted Obi Toppin and he's box office attraction and he can pretty much play that position, even though Gordon Hayward could play the 2 or the 3, as far as I'm concerned, at least on the offensive side of the floor. But I like Fred VanVleet, and I think that even though you're hearing that he'll probably re-sign and stay in Toronto with the Raptors, even though they'll be playing in Tampa at the beginning of the season, I would love to see the New York Knicks get a point guard, somebody who's a threat to score the ball, who's poised, doesn't fold under pressure, can put up points from the perimeter, and has a championship pedigree. That's Fred VanVleet, not Frank Ntilikina, which is a primary reason why Phil Jackson is no longer an executive in the National Basketball Association, because that was his draft pick. And by the way, he passed up on Donovan Mitchell in order to get that dude. Don't get me started. In the end, what it comes down to is I think you need guard play. I think you need elevated guard play. I know the Knicks like Gordon Hayward. Obviously, having $35 million in cap space, it looks like he's the guy they may go after. We don't know what that's going to materialize into. He was competing for a championship. Clearly, that's not going to be the immediate future for the New York Knicks. So I don't know whether he'll resign with Boston, go to Indiana, or go someplace else. But the New York Knicks are definitely in play. So they say. We'll see what happens with that. But I do believe Fred VanVleet should be somebody they consider if he gives any kind of indication that he's willing to consider them, because that little brother can play. He can shoot. He can run a show. He's a threat offensively from that point guard spot. And God knows they don't have that available to them right now.
He'd be perfect in New York in this system. By the way, we're not going to get you started because, it's been a good week for your Knicks. We'll see how this plays out moving forward. Thank you, Stephen A.
Greek freak. Once again, Giannis has some attractive options available. Again, he can sign a 5-year Supermax deal this offseason or next at over $45 million per season. Should he take a Supermax from another team next offseason, it would be just a 4-year deal at about $36 million per year, and that is significantly less. We're joined now live on SportsCenter by Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A., you know how much Giannis could get from Milwaukee, $228 million over 5 years. So in your opinion, what should he do? Should he sign that Supermax with the Bucks or not?
Well, I'm going to always encourage somebody to take the money. Let's get that straight, Sage. You're talking about in excess of $70 million that he would be passing up if he didn't sign with Milwaukee. So we understand that. Now, obviously, a consultation or a consolation prize, rather, would be him going to a place that has no state income tax, meaning Florida or Texas. That would basically mean Miami. But I doubt that will happen. In the end, here's the big thing to peel from this. Bogdanovich, you thought you had him. But ultimately, they messed that up, because now they're being investigated for tampering charges, and that deal has fallen through. That guy can play. He is going to be somebody that adds something to the equation. Now, if he goes to Atlanta, you have nothing to worry about. But let's say, for example, somehow, some way, the Lakers are able to get their hands on him. Maybe in a sign and trade, something along those lines involving Kyle Kuzma. Then you've buffered the Lakers roster, and you've basically eliminated any chance of Milwaukee winning a championship. I'm certainly not saying that will happen, but those are the kind of things that have been discussed over the last couple of hours. In the grand scheme of things, Milwaukee is good. They're one of the elite teams in the Eastern Conference, but do we look at them and pencil them in as champions eventually? No, we do not. And that is the kind of thing you wanted to make sure you put yourself in position to be, so you can ensure re-signing Giannis. Now that that's not the case, I don't know what to make of it, because Giannis isn't talking to anybody. We presume that he will ultimately sign with Milwaukee, but we simply don't know.
Again, the addition of Drew Holiday, a good one, but is that enough for Giannis to make his decision to stay? So we'll see what he does as he stays quiet right now. Meantime, another star who recently made a big decision is James Harden, and he turned down that 2-year, $103 million extension from the Rockets. Woj reporting that his sole focus remains on the Brooklyn Nets. As for the Nets, their GM Sean Marks, he was asked earlier today about whether or not he would mortgage the team's future for a star player. Stephen A., here's his answer.
If you put it like mortgage the future, I would probably say no, right? You know, there comes a fine line where you say, okay, look, this is what we're willing to do, not only in a trade for a star player, but every trade for that matter. We want to build something sustainable here. You know, this is not something that's a fleeting moment, like, you know, go all in and, you know, a year or 2 years from now, we're sitting here going, all right, well, great, now we got to completely rebuild all over again, and we don't have the assets to rebuild with. There's the other side where you go, look, take advantage of what we have right now and take advantage of the moment. You know, we obviously have, you know, a talented group that we can put on the floor as is until we know what deals are being offered or we're offering. You know, it would be difficult to say. But by mortgaging your future, Stefan, no, we wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, Sean Marks, I don't think he said James Harden's name once at all there. Probably pretty smart. But he's talking to his fan base, his team, but also talking to the Houston Rockets, Stephen A. So what do you think the likelihood is that Harden gets what he wants and gets to Brooklyn?
Well, I still think it's a 50-50 proposition, but let's give major props to Sean Marks. I mean, he danced better than Fred Astaire, Michael Jackson, and Sammy Davis Jr. all rolled into one, God rest their souls. The fact of the matter is, when you look at what he's talking about not mortgaging their future. Karis LeVert can play. Spencer Dinwiddie can play. Jared Allen can play. And certainly you don't want to give up multiple picks. But let me remind everybody, James Harden and Kevin Durant ain't approaching 40. Both of them are age 32. They've got at least 5 years left in this league at a very elite level. But who's to say Kevin Durant's going to stay in Brooklyn for that long? Signed a 4-year deal, 3-year to opt out. He didn't play this year. He's got about 2 full seasons left. You better win a championship if you got Kevin Durant on your squad. He's coming off the Achilles. You don't know whether or not he's going to be 100%. We know Kyrie Irving is injury prone, and what you have the opportunity to get is a 3-time scoring champion, one of the most prolific scorers this game has ever seen, and he wants to come to your squad in Brooklyn, not Madison Square Garden, Brooklyn, with KD and Kyrie, and you're going to sit up there and say, we don't want to mortgage our future involving Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert. I love those players. They've got a lot of promise, but